Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. Dude, we're cut from a different cloth. We're Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. You hear me? There we go. How we doing? Welcome in. Appreciate you so much for joining me. Just sitting around on a Friday night working on some notes, and I figured I'd just pop on because I got a couple things I got to talk about, even though I did a show earlier. The recruiting keeps popping up and kind of getting in the way of what I'm trying to work on. But I did have some things to talk about, including an Urban-Penn State hilarious fight that's going on that I have not weighed in on yet, and I've got some things to say about that, some videos to show you on that. Indiana folks are coming after me hard again. I get in more fights with these Indiana people than any other fan base, and it's amazing to me because I never even knew they existed up until, 6 months ago. But what are we going to watch Saturday? What are our viewing windows? We'll get into that and the games of consequence for the playoff. Not a great slate this week, but we'll have some fun regardless. And obviously, we got a couple of few big flips that just came. We'll hit on those for a few. But we always like to get into our questions before every game. The pregame, I like to ask questions and then see if I got the answers in the postgame show. And I don't have a ton this week because this schedule is just absolutely killing me. Like, for goodness sakes, man. I mean, thankfully for the recruiting this week, because I'm so burned out talking about Ohio State going into these opponents. I know they're just going to totally destroy. It's just like, I need some juice. I need some competition here. And it's great rooting for a team that just destroys everyone. But at the same time, I want to feel the fear of losing. I want to feel the fear of a close game. And it's coming soon. It's coming soon enough. Not going to be this Saturday, though, guys. Not going to be this Saturday as the old Ross Aid House of Horrors. They're not going to be able to get it done. Purdue, they've not been terrible this year, despite their record. I mean, they haven't won an FBS game, but they have scored some points. They scored 17 on USC. They scored 30 on Notre Dame, 27 on Illinois, 20 on Minnesota. They only lost to Rutgers by 3, 27-24. And, of course, their most recent game against Ann Arbor, they gave her hell. All she could handle, but they lost 21-16. And Purdue, wow, listen to this schedule, man. Like, you just heard those games. So USC, Notre Dame, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, and Indiana. Like, that is an insane schedule that somehow skipped over me. I guess when I look at schedules at the beginning of the year and see, okay, who's playing a tough one, I never thought to look at Purdue. Obviously, with a first-year head coach, we knew they would suck. But I watched a lot of that Michigan game last week, and they played pretty damn good. Now, Bryce Underwood looks like a wide receiver playing quarterback, so that certainly helps. That dude, some games, is just like, this is not going to work, man. This guy's not going to be a high-level quarterback. And then you see the kid at Maryland who's just awesome, true freshman. By the way, that kid from Maryland at his high school, Spalding, they got a freshman quarterback now that Ohio State has offered already, and they're just pumping them out. What's the name of that school? It's Archbishop Spalding. So, yeah, they got another one on the way, but that's an awesome school. Great talent there, and being able to recruit the DMV has been really well to the Buckeyes. But Bryce Underwood looked like a wide receiver. Jordan Marshall, however, did not. Jordan Marshall, Ohio running back, who walked out the door because Tony Alford was poor in recruiting him in favor of James Peoples. Just saw something about James Peoples yesterday that I'm going to share with you guys later when we talk about the running backs. But Jordan Marshall went absolutely nuts on Purdue, like 185 yards, 3 touchdowns, nuts. Broke off some long ones, and he looks really good. He looks really good as Justice Haynes. Foot hurt. He's in a boot. I don't think he's going to play in the game, but Jordan Marshall's certainly a load to deal with now. But the Big Ten, I wonder how many cellar dwellers of the Big Ten have ever had to play Ohio State and Michigan back to back. Because we talk about, the body blow theory. Like, that is a rough go if you're a Purdue or I almost said Indiana, an old Indiana style of team, and you got to play Ohio State and then Michigan back to back. What is the record like on that second of that back to back? Because I don't know what Barry Odom did to deserve this, but that is a tough go. And those players are going to be pretty beat up, man. But Barry Odom, Purdue's coach, a really respected defensive coordinator. Ryan Day talked about him on Wednesday, and he said he had discussions with him about opportunities at Ohio State, and he seemed to really talk very highly of him. So when it comes to predicting this game, you got to kind of weigh that in, right? So I don't think Ryan Day is going to be drawing up any plays to embarrass Barry Odom like he did to Jim Knowles. But let's get to our questions. We'll start on the defensive side of the ball. Caden McDonald. By the way, I was talking to my brother yesterday, and he brought this up. And I had not noticed this, but Caden McDonald does a lot of eye black all on his cheeks, and I think he used to do a design like this. And my brother told me, no, he's doing his entire face now, which I did not know, but I found this picture, and he surely is. He's doing his whole face. Like, what are you doing, bro? Can you imagine how scary this would be? Like, he's already 300 pounds, 330 with incredible strength and twitch. And then he lines up looking like this. Like, is something off with this guy? That was awesome. But McDonald was irritated that they gave up 14 points to Penn State. Said it's a lot too much. Way too many points. So the Boilers, obviously, the Buckeyes are going to try to pitch a shutout here. And I'd love to see a shutout. It would be the third of the year. But we're talking about a team that's played some good competition, and they've put some points up on them. So a shutout against these guys would be incredibly impressive. I think the key is that they hold them to 7. Hold them to 7 because Ohio State's average right now is 6.9 points. So if they can hold them to 7, keep that average to right around 7, that would be perfect. A shutout would be welcome, but I'm going to go with 42-7 for a score here. I think we'll score 42. Looking for a lot of running game here, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about question number 2, the offensive line. We got some dinged up soldiers here, and Ryan Day said that when he was asked about the 3 of them, 3 guys dinged up: Tegra, Josh Padilla, and Luke Montgomery. And Tuesday, Ryan Day said that he thinks 2 of them should be ready to roll. And I think he was talking about the 2 starters and not Padilla. So Josh seems like he's a little more dinged up maybe. And if that's the case, it brings up another question, as Padilla was the guy coming in to kind of sub for Tegra Shabola after Ethan Onyanwa was that guy. And then it was Ethan. And then Tegra played most of the snaps against Penn State, except for maybe like 8 snaps. And I'm wondering now, might we see maybe Gabe Van Sickle pop up into that role if Padilla is injured? Gabe Van Sickle played a couple snaps against Penn State. He's that next guard up in line there. And maybe we'll see him potentially play here, pop it in and spelling Tegra. And I do think it's hilarious that all of a sudden Tegra had a better game against Penn State than he has been having. And I heard some people saying this week that that's it. He's fixed. Tegra's fixed. Problem solved. He had a better game. No need for rotation anymore. I would like to see Van Sickle in there and get a shot, man. And I'd like to see some more Padilla when he's healthy. I think that spot needs solidified, and it doesn't seem like it's quite there yet. Question number 3, Ziggy Grady. I think this is a Ziggy Grady day. And I talked on Buckeye Huddle Primetime over on the Buckeye Huddle channel every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m., where I'm talking live over there on the Buckeye Huddle channel about the defensive line right now and about what it might look like next year. When we look at the roster, you've got Kenyatta Jackson, who ever since Kenyatta Jackson went to Matt Patricia, and he told us about going to Matt Patricia and talking to Patricia about playing some more, more aggressive role in the defense, not just cage rushing. He said, I'm fine with it. I'll do whatever I can for the team, but I'd like to showcase my pass rush moves, etc. Ever since that conversation that he told us about, he's been on fire. And it almost seems like, well, could he have just been doing this all along? Kind of, right? The dude is obviously a perfect specimen of what they're looking for at the next level. And if he continues to produce like this, I know we'd all love to see him back for a year. He's got one more year of eligibility. He redshirted as a freshman. How possible is that? How plausible is that? I think if he continues to play like this, he's probably gone because I think he'll get a really high grade. He's the body type they just absolutely die for. So you got Ziggy Grady, and by the way, Ziggy Grady, one of two guys from Alabama, him and Turbo Rogers in the class of 2025. I think the shoe's about to drop from Bessemer, Alabama for Emmanuel Ruffin, going to commit to the Buckeyes here shortly, unless Missouri comes calling with a massive offer. And they got a boatload of cash recently from a big booster. But let's just say they get Ruffin. So coming in, that makes 5 defensive linemen coming in the new class, 4 interior guys, 3 of them over 300 pounds, big dudes. And I think we're also seeing the ends get bigger as well. And this is the Matt Patricia effect here. So 2 of the 3 defensive ends that they're trying to flip right now are bigger guys, and Jimmy Frisco, Saliafu, who I think is more of an interior guy with his feet, but he's playing outside now. Katy, Texas kid, ton of production, great football player, committed to North Carolina. Then J.J. Finch from Indiana, who's an Alabama commit. He's another 260-pounder. And Dre Quinn, who's your stereotypical 225-pounder. So Kari Wilder's a 260-plus pound defensive end. Same with 2 of those dudes. So it feels like they're getting bigger on the defensive line. And not just getting bigger, but when we talk about all these guys, they're bringing in 6, maybe even 7 defensive linemen when it's all said and done. And I think there's a couple of reasons. Not just to get bigger, which I think what Matt Patricia does want to get bigger, but I think when you look at the current roster and you consider the atrophy here, transfer portal exits potentially, Kenyatta Jackson, you've got Caden Curry, who, unlike Kenyatta, played as a freshman. So he is out. He's done. He's out of eligibility. Then you've got Ty Malone. He's done after this year. He's out of eligibility. So what are you looking at one tech? You're looking at Will Smith Jr. You've got Eric Mensah, Maxwell Roy, and Jameer Perez. At 3 tech, you've got Edric Houston. You've got Jarquez Carter and Damari Simeon. To me, those are your 3 potential high-end starters. And then you got guys like Jason Moore and Trajan Odom, who I think are more potential role players. And Cam Brickle as well would be in there too at 3 tech. As who knows? I mean, he says 3 tech, but he may be a 1 tech. But at any rate, when you go out to defensive end, there's where you get a little sticky. When you're looking at defensive end next year, you're looking at guys like Bo Atkinson, Logan George, CJ Hicks, none of them a high level starter, in my opinion. And then you're looking at, okay, what are we looking at with Ziggy Grady? Because he, to me, looks like he's your best option out of all these guys that are returning. In that scenario, you got to see Ziggy play a little more here, man. We got to get this guy out here. When Bo Atkinson's out there and Zion Grady's out there, there's no drop-off. There's no drop-off at all. Logan George, we haven't seen this guy at all. I'm assuming that means he probably, isn't really in the plans for next year to be a starter, right? If you were up for potentially being a starter, you would certainly be playing some minutes this year. So who's the starters next year? Is it Ziggy Grady? Is Kari Wilder potentially walking in the door as a potential starter? Or at least a guy who's playing a ton. I mean, he's a freak. Guys that might exit in the portal, it would seem Josh Mickens, he would be a candidate for that. Dominic Kirks, after the spring he had, I had some real hope that he might step up. But it's clear that Ziggy Grady is one of the future guys here. He is one of the dudes, him and Epi Satanile potentially. So I'd love to see these guys here in these next 3 games, because you got 3. You got 3 games before you enter what we consider the playoffs, right? Starting with the game, then the Big Ten championship, then, 3 or potentially 4 playoff games should you lose the Big Ten championship. So that's question now that I've got way off topic. Question number 3, Ziggy Grady. Is it a Ziggy Grady day? And I sure hope it is. Ziggy has been good every time he's been in. Last week, Bo had 14 snaps and Zion Grady had 2. and that's trending the wrong way because he had 13 snaps the week before, and then I think 9 against Illinois. So trending the wrong way here. Want to see Grady get some more snaps, and I think it'll be tomorrow. Question number 4, Max Klare. Max Klare, obviously our Purdue transfer, whose little brother still plays at Purdue. And Max Klare said that his little brother is playing Max Klare on the scout team. So he is unbelievably excited to make his return to West Lafayette. And I think this year, 5 is his high catch game. Might have been 6, but we're going to go with 5. So we're going to say 5.5 catches for Max Klare. Over or under? Because we've seen Ryan Day make sure that when they go to a guy's home state or when they're playing, a team that is a little bit tied to a guy, that they make sure and try to get that guy some extra run. Remember Carnell Tate last year at Wrigley Field, where he's from, they really lit up the scoreboard with Carnell, and he made that one amazing catch where he was laying out. I don't remember if you guys were watching on TV, but the angle they were shooting it, the guy stood up in the crowd, and we totally got blocked out live of Carnell laying out and making that catch. It was pretty infuriating. But speaking of tight ends, freshman tight end Nate Roberts, one of my favorites in the class of 2025. Certainly no surprise that he's playing as a young freshman. Nate, an awesome young dude who represents another one of these guys like those Alabama guys that, 5 years ago, it just didn't seem possible. Like these geography barriers are just breaking down so fast. I mean, Nate, we're talking about an OU family, right? Not Ohio University, like Boomer Sooner OU. And all credit to Keenan Bailey for that one. But Nate's mom reached out to me the other day, Kristen, to tell me that her and Nate's dad love the show and they watch it all the time. So shout out to them. We're big Nate Roberts fans here at Chuck on Bucks. We got a lot of parents of players that watch the show, which is somewhat intimidating because sometimes I get a little off the rails. But I was wondering why that is. I think it's because of the pulse of the fans, man. They want to know the pulse of the fans. All you guys here, like Emily and Richie Dubs and everybody. Emily says, Ziggy or Zion, or do we have a Ziggy and Zion Grady? I'm lost. Same dude. They're just a nickname. Troy, I love Epi's physique, man. He's a dude. He's absolutely going to be a dude. No doubt about it. I know Arvels don't come along every year. That's for sure. Zion Grady is not next year's Arvel. No, the guy who's going to be in next year's Arvel role is TJ Alford, I think. And TJ is going to play that role pretty damn good, but he doesn't have that kind of freakiness. But, a couple notches down from Arvel is actually still a really, really awesome player. You know what I mean? But TJ's played that in some garbage time here and there, and he's looked really, really good doing it. Question number 6, Ryan Day was asked about the Heisman Trophy. He was essentially asked, if you are in a game and the game's getting away, are you going to do anything differently, essentially, with Julian saying, now that the Heisman Trophy is kind of in grasp here, are you going to try to pad his stats, etc.? And Ryan Day's answer was no. We're just win the game, win the game, win the game. And that's kind of been his mantra all year, win the game. He was super serious on Tuesday. And, coaches all have things that they want to do during a blowout. They've got certain packages they want to see. They want to see a certain guy in a role, like we're talking about with Grady or something. But I've heard some people talking about, well, you got to get Lincoln out there. And I was thinking, have you guys seen Lincoln much? Because I don't even recall, and I haven't even really thought about seeing Lincoln at all at the end of games. But with the Heisman Trophy lingering, Ryan Day deserves a Heisman Trophy. He deserves a Heisman Trophy winner. He should have had a Heisman Trophy winner. And that is something that, it's part of a coach's resume. I want him to have a Heisman Trophy winner. But I am curious to see when this game is over, will we look and say, I think maybe he might not have done that if it weren't for the Heisman Trophy. Maybe he left Julian one extra series and maybe got a little more aggressive than he would have. I don't know, but I am curious to find out. We'll talk about that, of course, on the post-game show, which the post-game show, I'll be live over at Buckeye Huddle with Mark Givler before we pass it off to Tom and Tony. And then, of course, I'll do my Chuck on Bucks post-game show after I reflect a little longer that comes out a little later on. But the biggest question, my final question of the Purdue game is we are now down to Purdue, UCLA, and Rutgers, right? 3 games before we get to the stretch. Michigan, Big Ten championship, hopefully 3 games en route to a national championship victory, and another one of these guys. These guys. Do you guys see? I listen, I organized behind me. See, the helmets are all nice and flat now. They were all at different heights. They have like all these different boxes, but I got them all symmetrical and pretty. And I tidied up around here. Oh, I got my Matt Wilhelm bobblehead out. Matt Wilhelm, shout out the Wilhelms. Mason Wilhelm, now a Buckeye commit. So that's awesome. But last week I was talking about Ryan Day always having his position coaches as the head coach of that position group, right? Like they make the decisions. They decide who plays in their rotation and how often they're rotating. That's their job. And he likes to give them, that all that autonomy. And it's I think it's a good way to lead, I trust you. This is your job. You're doing that. You're doing it all. And sometimes obviously things can be different. Like if you're, they're in the game planning phase and talking throughout the week, like, hey, I think we should see maybe this guy a little more. And, that's part of the plan going in, but he's not the guy subbing him out. And sometimes you can go in with an intended plan and it doesn't turn out that way, just game flow or forget a play. Who knows? Somebody gets dinged up when you intended them have him in for 3 plays. They get dinged up on the first play and counts get a little backwards. But the distribution of carries last week was puzzling. Coming out of the Wisconsin game, you had Isaiah West looking fantastic with 9 carries for 55 yards. Bo Jackson had 10. CJ Donaldson had 2. And that, I think, is, I'm hoping, what they view as kind of, all right, that's the perfect scenario right there. I think it's the perfect scenario with your 1-2 punch. And then you got your gadget guy that you insist on using in short yardage. But 9 carries, 10 carries for Isaiah and Bo allow them to get in a bit of a rhythm. And you came into Penn State, and I'm thinking like, okay, you want to see Isaiah West and you want to see, can you do it 2 games in a row? And I'm guessing that had to have been the plan. That had to have been the plan. At least I'm hoping it was. But then they got away from it as he only had 2 carries early on, 2 carries late in the game. Bo Jackson had his 13 carries. And so 4 total for Isaiah, 13 for Bo. And when you look at the Donaldson, he had 7. James Peoples had 4. And James Peoples had 4, including what I thought was the best run of his career. Isaiah West had an amazing run as well. But James Peoples had the best run of his career. 3 forced missed tackles on 1 run. And I was so fired up for James. That was great, man. He was fired up. He was amped up. He's been practicing better. Unfortunately, for James, it's just a lack of speed. It's a lack of burst. It's something he's doing wrong. And, when we reference recruiting and I talk about track times, and that is such a great way when guys have run track, and football coaches of recruits encourage them to do this to get those verified times, because when you're watching film, you don't quite know how fast everybody around the player is. So if he looks really fast, okay, well, is he really that fast, or are the guys around him not as fast, etc.? So the 100 meters, the gold standard. You look at a guy like Riley Pettijohn, for instance, a big linebacker who at McKinney, Texas, high-level Texas football, looked incredibly fast on the field. Oh, he was incredibly fast. A 10.77 100 meter, which is insane. Garrett Stover, CJ Hicks said that he could beat every linebacker in the room in a race except for Garrett Stover. But Garrett Stover, he's an 11.5 100 meter, which is good, but it's not, it's not great. But Blazers, guys like Jameer Perez or Legend Bay, these are 10.3 100 meter guys. Brock Boyd, insane speed. He runs the 200 meter, though. He's 21.7 200 meter, which is 10.85 100s back to back. And he's super fast. Turbo Rogers, really disappointing. 11.09. You want a running back turbo size, an undersized running back, to be sub 11 in the 100 meter. And I'm bringing this up because I just saw something that I never saw. And I think it might make a lot of sense to some people who have been wondering, what is it? A lot of people thought that James Peoples was going to be like this, J.K. Dobbins type of back. James Peoples' best 100 meter was a 12.41, which that's Riley Pettijohn beating him by a second and a half in 100 meter. And that is just, speed isn't everything for everybody, but for his running style to be effective, he needs that instant burst out of a cut. And it doesn't mean he can't produce, but a 12.41, man, that's not cutting it at this level of college football for a starting back. One that's not like a role player like Donaldson, who's supposed to run people over. Like, that's just not it. And I just bring that up because I think that might make some sense to people as to why they're not seeing what they thought they might have seen out of him. You look at every back on the Ohio State roster is going to be right around under 11 seconds, except for the big fellas. So that's where you're at with that. But when we talk about Donaldson, 7 carries, you had the fumble when he was in there in the 2-minute drill when he shouldn't have been. And I think that the Wisconsin plan is probably the plan that we want to see them follow going forward, which is Bo and Isaiah are the guys. Let's solidify this, get Isaiah some more run, because he does need some more run. When we look at carries here, and I broke this down today, I'll pull up here. So carries on the year, if we just go across the top, Bo's got 81 carries, Isaiah 25, Peoples 44, and Donaldson, the leader here, with 91 carries. And West having 25, like he needs a better feel. He needs to get some more action. Yards per carry, Bo still up at 6.6 yards a carry. Isaiah 4.6, James 5, Donaldson 3.9 yards after carry. Bo's at 4.8. He's just killing it in yards after carry. 2.9, 3.1, 2.3. The missed tackles forced is the best stat, man. I just love it. 15 for Bo, 8 for Isaiah West. Isaiah West is still making a guy miss once every 3.6 carries. Bo once every 5.6 carries. And Isaiah West's numbers in that are just astronomical. The guy is incredibly hard to bring down, and it's just he's a joy to watch. So he needs some more run. I can't wait to see him get some more action. And I think we're going to see that here at Purdue. Now, let's get to our Saturday windows. Actually, we got some windows tonight, guys. Not some windows, but some games. At least one that I think will be entertaining. So you've got Northwestern, who is 5-3, heading out to USC. They're only 14.5-point favorite, or dogs, Northwestern is. And Northwestern has played some guys tight this year, so that could be a potential game. We'll tune in and watch that. But there's a G5 game that I'm really looking forward to, and that is Memphis, who is 8-1 and potentially, one of the playoff team representative of the group of 5. And they're playing Tulane, who is John Summerall is the coach of Tulane, and he is the big up-and-comer that all the SEC schools are talking about. Should we hire John Summerall? LSU, Auburn. So he 6-2, potentially distracted, but most of us are rooting for South Florida to get that playoff spot. We need South Florida to get the playoff spot for Alex Golish, our guy from Ohio. So we're rooting hard for John Summerall in Tulane to beat Memphis to get them out of contention, because Memphis beat South Florida head-to-head a couple weeks back in Memphis in a really great game. So I'll be tuned into that. And John Summerall, I think, is going to be an awesome coach. And that's the kind of guy, when we talk about these coaching searches, I just, so many people think that there's just this perfect guy with experience at the highest level, but also been a winner at the highest level. And because you're this prestigious university, you should be able to go get that, even if he's employed somewhere else. And it's never really worked like that unless you're a couple of places. And it certainly is harder to do that now when we look at places like Ole Miss, where Lane Kiffin is, where he can literally win a national championship at Ole Miss now. There are so many places you can win it all now, and it's all about the investment. So does Florida make more sense for Lane Kiffin than Ole Miss if he's happy at Ole Miss? I don't think it does, but we'll see. Ole Miss has money, they don't have a lot of recruiting ground, but it hasn't inhibited him from getting great talent enough to compete in that league. That league. Oh, that league. I'm so sick of hearing about that league. You know what they're talking now constantly. I keep hearing they're calling it a Sunday league is the new thing they're saying, a Sunday league. So Georgia at noon goes to play Mississippi State. Georgia's only a 9.5-point favorite. Georgia, the 5th ranked team in the country, playing Mississippi State. They're only a 9.5-point favorite. And people will tell you that's because it's a Sunday league. Anybody can beat anybody on any given day. Everything is so tight. All the teams are this bunched together. Mississippi State, I watched them play once this year. I watched them beat Arizona State on a Hail Mary. They also beat Arkansas and Alcorn State in Northern Illinois. They kept it close with Florida and Texas too, maybe? Yeah, Texas too, just recently. They should have won that game, actually. Could they give Georgia a game? It would seem like they could, but Georgia, they have got this weird thing going about them this year that's just like every game seems to be close and they just come out the winner, which is kind of a reflection of good coaching, good culture, you would normally say. I mean, reluctantly, I say that about the Dogs, but, you know, they should have been down 17-0 at halftime in Auburn, but that fumble got reversed right before halftime. They end up winning that game 20-10. That game would have saved Hugh Freeze's job if he'd have beat Georgia that day. Ole Miss, they were down late in that one. They win that 43-35 in a barn burner. And then Mississippi State, 9.5. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Dogs on that one. I just don't trust Mississippi State to be able to do this in back-to-back weeks, compete hard against Texas and Georgia. They don't got the horses to do it. Kind of like poor Purdue, man, playing those two back-to-back. You know, we're talking about some big, talented, strong football players against some not very big, strong, talented football players at Mississippi State. But props to them and their coach, Jeff Lebby's first year, as he's doing really good for them. But I am sick of hearing about this league. Like, it's just nonstop. And the Big Ten SEC squabble is just continuous every day, all day long. Nobody concedes an inch. Everybody's disingenuous. It's really wearing on me, the whole argument about it. I just wish that these guys would play the Big Ten SEC Challenge at the beginning of the year so we could all have something to go off of to argue with, because I had a LSU fan pull up in my comments today, and he said, well, first he dropped a screenshot of the 2007 national championship game, as if to say he is superior, LSU, to Ohio State because they beat us in that one national championship game. That's his logic, that LSU, the school out hunting for a coach, just fired Brian Kelly. They hired Brian Kelly, which is as funny as firing Brian Kelly. They're somehow superior to Ohio State. They're not even a top 10 all-time program. So this is what gets me. And then you got to deal with these idiots that don't even know college football history. Like, he really thinks that LSU is a better program historically than Ohio State. And I don't know why I engage. I don't know why I do, but I can't help myself sometimes. Anyway, excellent coaches don't grow on trees. But I think Kirby Smart is an excellent coach, and Georgia is going to continue to win. I think they'll beat Texas and knock them out of the playoffs next week as well. I think that there is potentially a collision course angle here for Ohio State and Georgia. And I'll tell you what, I want it. I want it bad, because I don't feel like the torch has been sufficiently passed until we get a chance to beat them. And that would just be my dream scenario if I could line up how these brackets worked out. But they're obnoxious. I'll tell you what, out of the SEC fans, I think the Georgia ones I actually find the most relatable. I really like the Georgia fans the best. Some of the fan bases in that fan base I can't stand. LSU, one of them, obviously. But the Indiana fans recently have been the worst to deal with. They got this inferiority complex, and at the same time they're really cocky. And it's really strange that they're very irritated that people are saying that Indiana's running up the score. But we all know that Indiana's running up the score. They're running up the score, and whatever everybody's saying about Indiana when they see them play, they're killing everybody. Everybody's impressed by it. So it's absolutely the right strategy for them to run up the score. I get it. I'm not knocking them for it, but it is what they're doing. So some Ohio State account posted Ohio State's number of plays per game, 60 plays per game and how slow it is, etc. In this Indiana beat reporter account, quote tweeted it and put on top of it, yeah, so is Indiana. They're playing real slow or very slow too. And I look it up. Indiana's playing 71 plays a game. They're 34th out of 136 in the country in pace of play. They're not playing slow at all. Of course, I engaged with him. And of course, he was an idiot and still maintained that they were playing slow because they were pulling their players, their starters in the fourth quarter. That meant they were playing slow. I don't know, man. I don't know. As weird as the Indiana football team story's been, it has to be weird from a fan's perspective as well. They've gone from, first off, let's be honest, how many of them were really following Indiana football until this happened? So maybe it's not that weird. They just jumped on to a really cool story. But if you were a dyed-in-the-wool Indiana fan, the losingest program ever, and now you're in this situation, it would be hard to know what to deal with or how to engage with folks like us who've just grown up with living at the top of this sport and having these kind of conversations all the time. But Indiana, they were up 42-3 on UCLA. They threw the ball 5 out of 10 plays on a touchdown drive, up 42-3. Up 49-3, they threw a 62-yard bomb. And they're so argumentative about the fact that they are running up the score on people. They can't take it. They can't stand it. They try to say Cignetti pulls everybody out. It's the little brother Mendoza. People just think it's Fernando. No, it's Fernando. I'm reading it right here. Fernando, not Alberto. Fernando. But they're obnoxious. I can't stand them. They're the enemy, and I can't wait to get a piece of them. I really want to beat them bad. I remember that damn press conference. I'm going to pull that up from last year, the press conference that I chopped up after Cignetti gets done getting whooped by Ohio State. It was awesome. This was such a broken man. He never saw it coming. Couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. But Indiana has Penn State tomorrow. They are 14.5-point favorites. How? How are they only 14.5-point favorites? I have no idea. I'd bet the farm on that. By the way, beat reporter I read said that he and all the other beat writers at Penn State practice for their viewing window the other day said they've never seen such a low energy practice at Penn State. So they have full on quit. The line is only 14.5. If you are someone who is inclined to bet, I think that sounds like a pretty good inside tip there from those beat reporters. All right. Have you guys heard this Urban story? This is hilarious. So there's this goofy radio host who covers Penn State, apparently. And he came out and said that, well, I'll let our boy Mark Stone explain it, because Urban responded to this story and they did it right here on the podcast. I want to play this for you.
You're in our nation's capital, in DC. And some people out there decided to do some funny math. They said, Coach met with a Pennsylvania senator, so 1 + 1 equals you're the next head coach of the Nittany Lions. I didn't quite do the math that way, but there's people out there, I think, who have done that, Coach.
Yeah. Some who is the guy again? My phone started blowing up. What's
Zach
his name again?
Gelb, I believe, was his name.
Yeah,
We're giving him some credit right now, apparently.
Yeah, and you gotta give him credit. And he has 2 sources that said that I met with the senator that we became friends. Rob, you were there with Dave McCormick when we covered a Penn State game, and I stayed in touch with him, and we had breakfast in the Capitol, and we talked politics, Mark. And then there's another one. He said the source says that I had conversations with Penn State about the NIL, and I didn't know how to handle the NIL or so. So
come on,
first
Coach.
of all, that never happened.
Figure it out, man. How do you not handle NIL?
How do we get the 2 sources on our show here?
Oh,
can we invite the 2
Call
sources?
into the triple option sources.
Good one. Yeah, put it in the comment section.
It just cracks me up when people sit at a whatever.
You have no idea how many
make a
people
story, man.
All right. So Urban says the story is absolutely untrue. Now, the guy who reported the story on his radio show decided to double down. And want you to listen to what he had to say.
I've been talking to. I'm not going to crush Urban Meyer for lying when he says, hey, I don't have any interest in coaching again. But I've talked to 2 sources, and 2 sources told me that Urban Meyer had a great interest level in becoming the next head football coach at Penn State. And those sources told me he had conversations with the powers that be at Penn State about becoming their next head football coach. The reason why those talks did break down is when they got to the topic of NIL, which Urban Meyer has never been a head coach during the NIL era. His plan and his answers in terms of navigating those name, image, and likeness waters were not viewed satisfactory enough. And that's ultimately why Penn State is not going to view Urban Meyer as a fit for their program. And also, in further conversations with those sources, they went out of their way, which was 48 hours ago or so about, to tell me Urban Meyer is going to do whatever it takes to advocate for whatever job Brian Hartline wants. He thinks Brian Hartline is ready to be a coach, and he's going to advocate on the behalf of Brian Hartline. So Urban Meyer's already had conversations with Penn State. He's not going to be the next Penn State head coach, but he could be having future conversations with Penn State, and it's not going to pertain to him getting the job because that is already over. Those conversations are done. They're finished. Urban Meyer will not be.
Those conversations never happened. But if they did, that guy doesn't know about them. But listen how he just doubles down. Like, I talked to 2 sources. Like, okay, maybe you did. What does that mean? Does that mean it's accurate information? I mean, maybe you trust those. I mean, you put your name on it. So you obviously trust the sources, I would assume. But the way he just delivered that just seemed like, okay. Stories get told all the time when it comes to college football and coaches. And as Urban, they were talking about, met with the senator out there about something unrelated, whatever that was about, I don't know. But the thought that Penn State would sit down with Urban Meyer and discuss the head coaching position with Urban Meyer, and then when he gives them an answer about NIL, not say, well, this is actually how we think it should be done. Like, to move forward with the conversation, like, you know, the way he talked about it, which obviously we know it would have been 100% aggressive, right? We all know that. It's not like he didn't give him a Dabo answer, right? We'll put it that way. He didn't say, you know, I don't really want to play these guys or pay these guys too much, and I don't want to sign too many guys out of the portal. Urban would be aggressive as hell in this era. I want to pay him. He'd be riding Ross Bjork right now for money. He'd be absolutely furious about the situation with the money right now. No doubt about it. He would pound the portal. So whatever it is that conversation was, like, it would have moved further if they had that conversation. So, but anyway, Trent just took a college visit to Ohio State today. Very rainy and cold, but how was your visit, buddy? What's up, brother? How we doing? Just talking some ball, talking some games tomorrow. Guys, the game I'm most excited for outside of the Ohio State game is the Big 12 game. BYU at number 8, Texas Tech. I love watching a game from Texas Tech. The Big 12 may actually be a 2-playoff team league this year. They got way more respect than the ACC did in that initial poll. Pardon me, that initial playoff ranking on Tuesday. So I'm kind of excited for this one. Texas Tech's a 10.5-point favorite, but BYU, not only undefeated, they very rarely ever get blown out when they lose. Like, their games are always close. So I'm thinking I'm going to take BYU in all those points. As I haven't been talking picks recently, but I'm getting my clock clean. Clock clean. So I'll just keep my mouth shut till it picks back up. But I think we're going to go with BYU. BYU plus the 10.5. And I can't wait to watch this one. I wish it was in prime time. I hate this game is going to be on the day or during the day during the Ohio State game. But whatever. We'll be here for the B-Star says it's funny to think IU fans already think they have got the gabagool, but have no clue that someone has forgotten it. Here at OSU, we got that on deck. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ken, what's up, buddy? Ken, we were just talking about Georgia. I just can't see, I can't see Mississippi State coming off of that heartbreak against Texas, the body blows, and then being able to get back up right after that immediately and getting Georgia, who's just been so damn hard to kill this year. I mean, I have felt like Georgia was about to lose 3 times this year. Each time they pull it out. Hey, maybe it's a magic kind of team. It's a magic kind of team that's going to need to run into a buzzsaw. It's going to need to run into a buzzsaw, man. So, Richie's out dinner with the wife. Have a good one, man. Andrew thinks Alabama fans are insufferable. the most I ever interacted with Bama fans was the national championship game down in Miami, Notre Dame and Alabama. And my brother and I went down there. He bought me and him tickets for that game because I had helped him helped him with this business project, and he surprised me. And I was so excited. I'd never been to a national championship game that I started crying because he bought me these tickets to the national championship game. It was a really sweet gesture. So no, I'm not going to tell the rest of the story. Anyway, we go down to this national championship game and interact. It's on, South Beach. I've got us this little hotel on South Beach, the little Art Deco zone there with the the pictures they always show, those hotels, the one specific row there. And I met Danny Cannell. Danny Cannell and I talked for a while, but tons of Bama fans, tons of Notre Dame fans. And I could not have hated the Notre Dame fans more and liked the Alabama fans more. The Notre Dame fans were absolutely insufferable. They were rude. They were haughty. They thought they were better than everyone. They acted like they were just super highbrow, man. It was like Michigan times 20. And, I know tons of Notre Dame fans here in Northeast Ohio, but, they're Irish and Italian Catholic folks. They're not Notre Dame grads, which I'm assuming a lot of these folks were, like, connected, because it's a very expensive ticket. And, man, they were rough to deal with. I couldn't stand them. I really hated them. Really enjoyed the Bama fans. And that was probably the most surprising thing of the damn trip, that I came home saying that. Ken said, damn, that's a hell of a reaction from brother to brother. That'd make me happy knowing you were happy. Well, I mean, I'm telling you what, I was so caught off guard. And that was back. We didn't have much money back then. He didn't have much money. We had money, but not like, money to throw away $5,000 on 2 tickets to go watch the national championship. Here's the craziest part. How many years later was it? So the Alabama-Georgia national championship game in Atlanta, when they first opened the Mercedes Dome, he won 4 tickets to the national championship game, won them from a food purveyor. And we got to go again, except they were great seats. So he parlayed those seats. We sat up in the nosebleeds. He sold those. We sat in the nosebleeds. He, made enough money to pay for the plane tickets and the whole transportation. I'm sorry, they paid for the plane tickets. He must have pocketed that money, but he made a bunch of money. We sat in the nosebleeds. But it was awesome. It was awesome too. And I was wearing Buckeyes gear all around Atlanta. I wore Ohio State gear into the national championship, Georgia versus Bama. And again, the Bama folks laughed. The Georgia folks were all snooty with me with my Ohio State gear. I like the Bama folks better. I do. ND fans act relevant when they haven't won anything in ages. They have the Lou Holtz arrogance and delusion. I don't know, buddy. I don't know if they're delusional anymore. I think they're all the way back. I think they're all the way back now. I mean, they were right on the doorstep there. Remember, they did score first in that national championship game. They scored first. They were awfully excited as their quarterback stumbled off throwing up on the sideline. How funny was that, man? So I was live. I was live for that game. And it was a stressful drive. But my gosh, like the 8th carry for Riley Leonard, I'm like, there's no way they can keep this up. If this is all they got, we're gold. And then when he threw up, it was like, all right, that's it. We got him. We got him. All right, guys, I appreciate you so much for popping in and hanging out with me on a Friday evening. Now, tomorrow, the game starts at 1, not noon. So we will be here popping up live for our live stream to watch the game at about 12:45, as we'll have some other 1 o'clock games on to watch. It sounds like our YouTube TV situation is still very far away from reaching a deal. So I signed up for Hulu in addition to YouTube TV. So I've got Hulu for Fox and those other networks, and no, other way around. Hulu for ESPN's, YouTube for Fox. It's a big disaster, man. I'm so angry about it. I'm so angry. It's like all I care about for TV is literally this college football. That's it. And they screw with me like this in the middle of the season. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Talk to you tomorrow. Juggabucks out.